Welcome everybody to the advanced series of Sage 300 Business Intelligence. My name is Dennis McVeigh, and today, page down. Today I'm going to show how to make a 12-month sales summary report using Sage Business Intelligence using version Sage 300 2014. Now, you'll have one of the things I'll show is how to use SQL views, build the building blocks, use the Sage Intelligence, using the column filtering and the reports and the parameters, all Sage Intelligence. All these things will end up in the end result of a BI report, which I will show that report first. I want to show you what you're going to get and show you how to do it, and then show you the final results. It's always good to see where you're going, see what you're doing to get there, and then see it again at the end. So what I'm going to do is I have a screen view. Can everybody see the screen clearly? Okay.
Yep.
So I'm going to flip over to here, and I'm going to go into BI. It's the report right here, 12-month summary. I click the Run button. It prompts me some data up in the corner here. Let me just let it, the prompts. I'm going to take all the defaults, but you have the ability to change all that. We'll go with that later. I click OK. It does its magic. It sets some properties. Lo and behold, boom, up pops Excel in the bottom here, and we'll see that we have a complete 12-month summary. Summer, January, February, March, April, May, by salesperson, by company. So, wow, that's nice. How do we get there? So we took all the data in Sage that was in multiple rows and columns in different places and stuffed it all into one easy-to-read, easily formatted report. So you can uncheck by salesperson. We'll do all that later. I want to let you to see that the end result took data from Sage, dropped into Excel, formatted, and you can change the formats. You're in Excel now, and then presented you a meaningful report. Not that Sage isn't, but just as more 12-month view, a 12-month view of your data, and you can scroll over and see it all. Right? You can be able to scroll more columns. See, make them smaller, bigger. So, and you can print this out. So you can do a lot of things, grab from it, and so forth. All right, let's go back. This is the end result. Here's what we're going for: is how do we get there? Let's go back to how we got there. So I'm going to close this session here. Go back to my. So here's what I'm going to do. So now, what you need to do to get all this done? You need Sage 300, of course, in the distribution bundle, because we're using order entry, IC, which are all part of the distribution bundle. You need the Sage Intelligence Report Connector, Report Manager, and Report Viewer. You don't need the Report Designer, because it can also do these things as well, but that's another $3,000 expense. So this will get, you do not need the designer to do this. And of course, you need SQL Management Studio or better, 2012 or better. Remember, Sage, starting in Sage 2016, you must have 2012 64-bit or better operating system and SQL Server. Okay, next slide. Am I going too fast? Because I talk fast. The next slide is the actual report, which I just showed. I had the slides out of order. The next slide is, okay, what do you need? Well, you do need Excel experience. If you're going to create pivot tables, and you're going to use the data order filter features of Excel, you got to know how to use them. You got to know Sage 300. You got to know AR, IC, OE. What are optional fields and how they're used? Because this report's using optional fields. You don't have to. I did it in this report. You have some experience with SQL, SQL, or at least copy the gobbledygook I put up on. I'll show you on the screen. And then you have to have experience with Sage BI if you are going to manipulate the data. If you just use the report as it is, you don't have to do anything. So this is really not a beginner's class. However, I think a beginner can follow along. Okay, let's talk about what am I doing. Let's take a detailed look. Okay, I'm going to look at SAM Inc. And that's all this is as SAM Inc. And I'm going to look at optional fields in the customer and the order and shipments. And then I'm going to get a quick look at the Sage Application Object Model, or AOM as we call it, because then you'll see why I had to do what I had to do. let's look at the tables and views. So we're going to jump back and look under the covers of Sage 300 and say, well, why are you doing all this, Dennis? Well, because Sage 300 doesn't have the table set up, give you the data you need. However, we'll give you the data you need, and then we'll report off it. So I'm going to jump over here back to my server, right here, and I'm going to jump over to SQL, and I'm going to leave that for a second. So I'm going to go over to the tables. Actually, I'm going to jump first to the, right here, order entry, sales history. So in order entry and in Sage itself, Sage gives you what they call the application object model that says where the data is and what you need. So if you want to get, I want to get a history. I don't want all the details. I just want the history. You can go into this AOM and type the word history, and it'll find you all the history files. So I see right away I have a detailed and I have a summary. Right? So I have two history files. As these are screens, these are the files, OE/SHDD and OE/SHDT. Okay, I made it simple. I put that into one of the slides so we can see what's important about them. So I'm going to jump back to my slide and say, here they are. And basically, in the customer file, we have the customer name and address, phone number, salesperson default, and so forth and so on. We have the optional fields, whether we can use optional fields to determine anything. Job they're working on, part of the country, some specific about the customer that is not stored in the customer file, but the use of optional fields, I can do that. And my report's doing that. So we have clients that do jobs for customers, and the job has a special name, and they want to track that. How are we doing the sales on that job year to date? And you can do that. As well as the shipment detailed history and the shipment history view, which I just showed you, the history view, as well as the order header, the order optional fields, and then I made up a new data view. So how's all that look? Well, okay. In that history summary I talked about, we keep year, period, customer, item, and then all the details. In the detail file, we keep year, period, customer, item, transaction, stay in sequence, transaction number. We keep so much detail, it becomes 100, 200,000 lines. That report would be huge. If I use the summary report, it's not big enough. So, this is the root, right? So now I'm going to, whoops, too far. So I'm going to make a new view up. It has just what I want. It's just enough. Has the year, the period, the customer, the item, the salesperson location, transaction type, so I know it's a credit memo, an invoice, or whatever, a category so I can sort it, a shipment number if I want, and then the sum of all the data. So much less detail. And you saw that detail right here. So I have the salesperson, the customer repeated, the name repeated, the type of customer, which is an optional field, the sales zone, which is an optional field in the sales order entry field, then the actual item, and then the sum of sales. So I'm talking quickly, but I think you're getting the drift that I'm using some data tables, taking that data table, making another table or view, and then using that when I go to Sage Intelligence. And I'm mixing and matching up here with other fields that have the data I need. So I don't need to store that data out. I just match and get it. So I'm going to be able to say for any job for my customer, the year-to-date sales, or for any rep, their sales on that job. Or I can show all categories of furniture I'm selling, or all categories of dental implants that I have, or all categories of special tile I'm selling in New York City for Salesman 5, year-to-date. Well, I'm giving commissions out maybe. I can have a lot of reasons to do that. I want to track how well that I'm selling through, what jobs it sells best through, and so forth. So I've done all that. So the one piece you're missing so far is I referenced this view. Okay, what is that? Well, that's data made from real data. And it's real data, but doesn't exist anywhere. It's only a view. So what you do in SQL, I'm going to go over here, and that's what you need the SQL Manager. I'm over here, and here's the view. So what it says is, it says this data, I'm taking the data from one of the tables, happens to be OESHDT, and we talked about that table. That table was right here in my little globe, and here it is. So this is the table that has all that detailed, and I'm only taking some of it. So I'm taking it down, only down to the group by, with the group by command, year, period, item, salesman, location, territory, and I can group it any way I want. If I only want to see it by year, period, item, salesperson, location, and territory, I can stop there, and I compress the data even more. But then I don't get to see the customer, or I don't get to see something else. But here it is, that view's there, it sits in my view, and I did it for Sam Inc. So now, even though it's not real data, it looks and feels like real data. It means I can use it now. So I'm using it in my intelligence reports. Okay. Am I just going so fast that people say, what are you doing? Get the feel. All right, so here it is. So with that view, and here it is, how it's going to look. I'm summarizing down that level, summarizing the sales. Now I'm going to start matching to the other files. I'm going to go to my customer file and pull their optional field. I'm going to go to my shipment file and pull out the optional field for that shipment, because I may have the territory or the sales code or something else I want to summarize by matching over to my, I can't show it, we're off the screen, it's too big, to my detailed, just right history file. Okay, so I get this kind of data. Well, now we're going to jump into Sage BI, and I'm going to see it in Works. I'm going to see the connector, I'm going to see the report manager, and then I'm going to see the report. Going really quick. I talk really quick, so we're going to be done fairly early, which is good. So let's go into Sage Intelligence. Now we've seen all the gobbledygook that put this together. Let's see how it looks. Going over to my Sage installation again, and now I'm going to close down this. By the way, that's what this data looks like when I actually do a query against it. I get the year, I get the period, I get the item, I get the salesperson, I get the location, the territory, the category, the customer, the shipment number, and then the summary of the data. And I can take any data I want, but this is the data I chose for my demonstration report. And then, of course, I had to do a lot of gobbledygook, fill the back end, because I took the Sage sample data, and there's no data. So I had to start backfilling data. And I did that this morning. So if you want to play with a report like this, I'll give you my sample data, which is all marked up already for you, and you can play around with these kind of reports. We're going to leave SQL now, because I gave you all the basics and understanding of under the covers where you have to do some things. Now we're going to go into Sage. So let me just even minimize this. I'm going to minimize it. Okay, I'm going to minimize my views. I'm going to take away this report because we're going to reproduce it again. I'm going to minimize and I'm going to minimize this. And I'm going to minimize, and now actually I'm going to come here. I'm going to minimize, come right back to it. So I'm in Sage 300, and in Sage 300 I have my intelligence reporting, viewer, manager, connector, and analysis. And most companies have not bought analysis, so I'm able to do this with just these three tools. So connector, I have it open. That's that little green thing in the bottom. It says C. So I'm opening up, and here's my connector. I'm going to maximize the screen. So what I've done is I've gone into the connector, I've drilled down, and I created a sales invoice summary. And here what it does, again, I can double check by use of some commands. I hit execute, and this is the raw data you're going to see, much like the raw data you saw in SQL, but now with all the other data combined. So if you looked at my little spreadsheet back here, I took all the data that was important from the customer file, the optional fields file, the shipment detail, the order header file, the optional field file for order header, and then my new view of history data. I skipped the detail, I don't need it, it's in here. and I created this this connector with this data. So it's there, and this is my little test, so I can see that I got the data I wanted. I can scroll through it and see all the data, even though I'm not going to produce it all in the report. I have lots of data columns. Click OK. Important thing you know is that once I create the data column, and it's right here, invoice detail summary, right? Here it is, this one here. So I can see all the fields I've chosen. And I can, by the way, I can take fields and say, take the customer code SLP1, and we know that from our little model, that is the accounts receivable customer, CUSTOMER. That is the AR cust. Here it is. We'd see in that screen, I have to look for, what was it called? It was called sales, code SLP. I know what it is, but I'm going to show you what it is. CODESLSP1. That's salesman 1, by the way. If you scroll down here, it is salesperson number 1. As you know, Sage 300 supports 5 salespersons per customer, and that happens to be salesperson number 1. But if you didn't know it, you would look it up in this AOM document, and that would tell you. I just happen to know it, but I wanted you to see how I got it. Okay, I'm going to minimize that again. So I did all the fields, customer number. I also did days to pay. I did a customer name type. This funny field named cust. I actually did, what else did I do? Here's the September. So wait a minute. There's no field called September. There's no field called September. How did I get that? Okay, got to go back to the connector. I have it open? Yeah, I have it open. So I go back to the connector summary. In here, I made a pivot table, and I said 01 is January, 02 is February, 03 is March, 04 is April. So I actually even transposed the numbers into the names of the fields. That's how I did that. So what I've done is I can get September. Intelligence knows it's field 9. See, it's field 9, and I call it September. It knows all the months because they're part of this pivot table. And you think of a pivot table in Excel as when I take a row and I use the transform function. I take a row, so I take many, many, many rows and make them all one column. Just turn the whole thing. That's what I've done with this pivot feature. So now I can do that 12-month report because it acts as one record rather than 12 records or 50 records or whatever. So here's what I did. I gathered all this data. So in a connector, you say, I'm making this data connector, data source. I'm using these fields and only these fields, but I can use more. I can add any field I want. So it knows of all the fields I have and lets me pick them all from all the tables I've used. Any more, if I want to get more fields from the customer file, I can. I can grab those fields. So I can just keep adding fields to my list. Now, that's connector's done. It's got a name called Sales Invoices Summary. That's important because now when I go to the report writer, I'm going to use that report, that connector. So you'll see if I double click, it says source container. So when I made this report, it says, by the way, where's your data? And I said, oh, you go get the sales invoice summary. So when I look at a report and I go to add columns, and I go to add, it'll bring up all the fields. I'm going to stretch this out. All the fields that I described in my container. And there they are. See, I don't see 07. I see the word July because I called it that. And I see September, I see type, I see name customer, I see November, I see the salesman number, code partner, but I could have called the salesperson. Days to pay, because I got that from the customer file. The item number itself, all these things are here. So now, I've created this report. Here they are. And of course, I can move them up and move them down. I can change the order. Say I just put January, February, March. I put them all. They're fields to me. Well, wait, they used to be rows in a table. We don't care. They're columns now. They're actually as if they were fields in a database, and they're not. But they, for intelligence, they are. That's the magic of this. The customer name type, the sales per year. Of course, I have period and year as well. I have filters. I say, okay, but I don't want to see my freight items, so I'll filter them out. And I can filter out as many things as I want to filter out. And I have parameters. Say, okay, but when I run the report, I want some options when I'm running it. I don't want to go back and make 50 million reports. Okay, so I'll prompt you when this for a salesman range, because that's the salesman code. SLSP1 is salesman 1. And sales zones happen to be my optional field that's in the order entry summary header. So when I'm placing an order, actually it's in the customer file. When I'm placing an order, I made up an optional field called sales zone. And I said this customer belongs to this sales zone. And that could be anything I want. It's a value. New York, New Jersey, 1 to 10, whatever I want. And then, of course, the type, which is the, if you remember from the model in the, I'll jump over here. Actually, it's in the model, so I'm going to show you the model because that's more important. Do I have it? There it is. Yep. Here's the detail. So the type is 1 if it's an invoice, 2 if it's a credit memo, and 4 if it's a debit note. I think that's the right type. Yeah, I think that's the type I chose. Yep. Am I in the right one? Yeah, I'm in the detail. Yep, that's the type. So type is the transaction type. 1, 2, or 4. Okay, so it's equal to based on 99. So now with these parameters and these, and now I also sorted it. No, I didn't sort it. Okay, I can sort it. I can add sorts if I want to. Okay, I go back to my original screen. Properties allows me to show advanced, so I can say report hidden or not, and allow report on the viewer. So I can say my users with only or can run the report. They can't change it other than pick the runtime parameters, which I'll call parameters. So the viewer can do anything. The normal viewer can only do the following. Then I can run the report. So now I'm back to the report. It's all made, all done, and now I go to run it. So once I'm on the header saying salesperson 12-month summaries, I can click run. And now my parameters kick in. And here they come. So as you saw, my parameters were from to sales person, from to sales zone, the type, from to. And now I can also have year too. I can also choose year. So I click OK. I click run. It executes. It drops the data into Excel, does my formatting that I did in Excel, remembers all that formatting, and lo and behold, up pops my spreadsheet. Now, this I did in Excel. What it did was this, sheet 1. It dropped in the raw data. Salesperson, customer, name, type, zone, item, and then my months. I then went into setting up more what they call pivot tables, so I can view and slice and dice the data and see different ways to do year comparisons. So I can do a 2-year comparison if I want, a 3-year comparison if I want, 10-year comparison if I want, as well as I can do a sales by customer by a sales by salesperson by customer. So I'm taking that same raw data and now I'm making more tabs in Excel that give me what I want. And by the way, this is up to the second because order entry and order shipments are live. So the minute I place a shipment and I run the report, it's there. Because the view uses the history data, which uses the order entry file, and the BI tool uses the view with the customer file. So it's up to the second. Went real fast. And in fact, I went blindingly fast. But I'm hoping you're seeing what I'm talking about. Scroll down. We talked about the raw data. We talked about the new I created to see the data. Not so much detail, but more than the summary had. I went into BI and actually did specific reports, covered the reports and filters, ran the report, and then showed the use of the Excel pivot tables. And for pivot table export, you can do more things with these tables. So we are running the report. You can see our filters and final output. Each person can now alter pivot tables and change the data. We saw that. I could be right here in Excel. That was my Excel sheet. I can be right here in Excel. And I can change this report, take salesperson off, take salesperson, and I just get the list of my customers by sales. If I put it back on, I get a breakdown by customer by sales. Okay. I did this sheet to make up the PowerPoint presentation, so you can see I took this detail, this summary, this detail, and really made something in between using the raw data. Back to my chart. Okay, I've done everything, start to finish. I went through pretty fast, but I did cover all the details necessary. We are recording this. Do anybody have any questions specifically? Of course, this presentation will be published to our website for people to view and look back at their leisure and absorb what I said in this 45 minutes. And I covered a lot of topics and a lot of features of all Sage, Excel, SQL, and BI. Questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there a way that we can generate this report without using the connector?
You cannot report without the connector because the connector is needed. It builds a new data set. Now, with that said,
report manager. Can we use that to generate this report?
Uses a source container, and a source container. If you see, let me show you the Sage BI comes with source containers. Now, can you? I don't know. I haven't tried that. Can you bring a report in from another system that has a different source container and will allow you to make it? Say it's a source container here that you need. You need this container, which Sage does not come with. It comes with this container, the sales analysis container. It's an entirely different container. I made up a special container using a lot of features of SQL. You would normally need the analysis tool, the report designer, to do this.
But in order for me, I cannot, to do this report, I cannot do all this programming or...
Yeah, you couldn't do it just with Reviewer and Manager. You need the connector.
Mm-hmm.
Don't need is the designer, which is another tool that helps you build, but you do need the connector because you're creating a new data source or connector for BI to talk to.
Oh, okay.
So that's one thing. For companies that are not on Sage support, I'm hoping they have the connector. This tool is very valuable. I don't think if you import a manager tool, it will allow you to make a connector unless you have the connector module. I think it will balk at you and say you can't do this yet. Because otherwise you can make it and then send them out, and people wouldn't need the connector. But I'm sure you need it. I'll double check that one and answer your question. But I believe to be true that you need the connector. You need all three. You need all two. You don't need the viewer. It's just the viewer so people can run the report. It's available in the viewer without them being able to change the report. It comes down to the bottom here. It's now available in your monthly reports. They can still run it. All they do is get the prompts for the parameters on running. They can't change things. Okay? They don't get the report. They get to change the running parameters for the report. The parameters that the manager specifies. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Then I think if that's it, that's our questions. I have more time. People can email me. I didn't put my email address up there. I probably should have. I just type it in. I can't. Dennis at TNTMTECHNOLLOGIES.com. So Dennis at tandemtechnologiesllc.com, or visit our website, tandemtechnologiesllc.com. Thank you so much all for attending. I hope this was somewhat informative.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.